big thank you, Carol, for joining me and sharing your story.
Welcome.
Do you want to, could you just share with us how it all started at the very beginning, coming to see me?
I was always struggling with weight issues and tried every diet on the planet.
Yeah.
Nothing really worked for long or very effectively. Also, a lot of gut issues, sleeping problems, a lot of just general medical things going on.
Yeah, yeah. So we first started working together 2 years ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Was it two years ago? Yeah. And we worked primarily on gut issues, I think, at that time.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mentioned about metabolic balance, but we didn't go ahead at that time.
No. I really wasn't ready at that time.
What do you think it
probably-
was that you weren't ready about, or that you?
I wasn't ready to make a dramatic change to my lifestyle. I was quite
Yeah.
happy with my lifestyle.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the consequences of it.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. So you got back in touch with me last year. Can you maybe talk through what the situation
When I'd
was?
reached another high with my weight, I'd put on even more weight, and I just knew that I couldn't keep going that way. And I knew that I'd exhausted every diet on the planet. There was nothing left to try, and I needed help, and I knew that I couldn't do it. I kept trying, and it wasn't working, and I needed somebody to help.
If I remember correctly, you were also really reading a lot of material and listening to podcasts, and you were doing a lot of your own research, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So you were sort of, you felt like you should be able to work it out for yourself. I seem to remember this conversation. Yeah. That,
Yeah, I like to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing.
yeah.
And that's why I'd done such a lot of research. But I guess the outcome of that was that I really wasn't able to apply what I'd learned effectively. Or maybe I was making excuses.
Okay.
And once I
Interesting.
started Metabolic Balance, there was no room for excuses anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. So, would you mind sharing maybe just, how old are you, Carol, so we can...
I will be 69 this year.
69, yeah. So we really did want to just give you a great retirement and just help you feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to go into old age in a good state of health.
You want to have great experiences and a great quality of life,
I
wasn't it?
do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So last year you started Metabolic Balance. How did you find the whole process? What was...
Challenging,
Yeah,
definitely challenging.
yeah. In what context? Can you give us a little bit more of an insight?
Completely changing the way I eat.
Was it a complete change?
Absolutely,
That's interesting,
absolutely.
isn't it? Yeah.
A complete change, and that's an ongoing thing. 5 months into the process, I'm not by any means completely transformed.
No.
I still think about what I used to eat, and I still have moments when I would like to eat that way. I'm still tempted very often, but I know that what I'm doing now is good for me. I'm well, I'm healthy, I have lost weight. I know it's the best way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what were the specific things that you've noticed that you feel different in your health?
Well, obviously losing weight, which that's been really nice, but I guess the biggest thing is my blood pressure.
Okay. Yeah.
My blood pressure has come down to the point that in another 4 weeks from now, if I continue as I am, I'll be completely off my medication.
That's lovely, isn't it?
It's really nice.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the medication I was taking for ulcerative colitis.
Okay.
Colitis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, colitis. I haven't taken it for 5 months. That is absolutely amazing. I don't need it. When I'm eating properly, I don't have gut issues.
Yeah. And again, what does that, because having gut issues actually really does take over your day-to-day life, doesn't it?
Does.
Yeah. So what would you
Yeah.
say you've been able to do because of that?
Well, mostly I can sleep at night because the gut issues I was having. Well, of course, the other thing, before I came to see you, I had just realised that I was gluten intolerant. And of course, this diet has no gluten in it at all. And the change to my whole system not having gluten is just, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But I don't have to pace the floors at night with pains in my stomach anymore. I sleep,
How
which is
lovely is that?
wonderful.
Yeah, how lovely.
And yeah, just not having the reflux, and it's just lovely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there anything else that you would share that you've realised from changing your diet?
I think the other thing, and this is, you talk about researching things, but I think that what this diet does, and I'm not the expert, what this diet does is it levels out those insulin spikes, those sugar spikes,
Yeah.
and that just makes a huge difference.
So have you felt hungry on the program?
No,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
When I first started, I didn't know how I was going to get through 5 hours without eating anything. And then I saw the breakfast and thought, I can't make a meal out of that. And now I happily enjoy that breakfast every day and don't even think about lunch.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. I think there's often that fear that you think you can't do something, and actually you just start doing it, and then it's like, okay, this is actually really quite easy.
It is easy.
Yeah.
I guess that's
Yeah.
what I would say to anyone, that when I looked at it, I thought, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And now that I have done it, I would say, it's easy, you can do it.
Because sometimes, you know, when you think about what's easy and hard, you know, actually what was hard was the gut issues you were having,
Oh,
the
absolutely.
tiredness, the uncertainty, the feeling ill. That's hard day-to-day life, isn't it?
It was, and it certainly wasn't a pleasant way of spending your days.
Yeah, yeah, that's much harder in my opinion. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So I do seem to remember we were having a few conversations about, you know, when you were out and about and you were at social events, that took a little bit of getting used to.
Yes, I found that really challenging because I couldn't
You're
quite...
social. You love your
I am.
social. You love your, you know, hanging out with your friends and having fun times.
I do, and
Yeah.
I really thought that when I'm spending time with my friends and we're having coffee or we're having morning tea together or whatever, if I'm not engaged in that, then it's going to spoil it for everyone. And what I've come to realise is that no one else is really looking at what I'm eating. I can have a glass of water, and as long as I'm busily chatting, nobody's noticing that I'm not eating and drinking.
But you
It's
also
all
realise you
about
don't.
me.
Yeah, and you don't need it either.
I don't need it, and I
Yeah.
don't want it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what I always loved people to understand, that we find a way of still having great quality of life and doing the fun stuff in life.
Exactly.
But you do it on your own terms.
Yes.
You don't do it to please anyone else.
That's right.
You look after what
Yeah.
you need. Yeah, that's really cool. I remember that those moments. Yeah. And so if somebody were to say to you, you know, I'm thinking of doing metabolic balance, what would you say?
Do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah.
And if
no
somebody,
regrets.
and if somebody were to say to you, "Oh, that's quite an expensive program," what would you say to that?
Well, someone did say that to me just this week, and I said, no, I don't think it is at all. When you look at what you gain from it, you have a blood test. Your whole program is designed for you individually based on that blood test.
Yeah.
Then you have, is it seven
sessions
with a nutritionist who's guiding you all the way through, checking your weight, checking your measurements, talking about your progress. I don't think $2,000 is a lot of money to spend at all to get all of that. And I guess not just that, but for the rest of my life, I now know how to eat.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not a lot of money at all.
Yeah. And of course, that money also does vary depending on the different practitioners
Of course.
you work with. So just to sort of point that bit out. But I'm so glad you see it in that way, because that's
I really do.
That's the biggest gain, because you've now got this knowledge that you can always apply, and you know that if you've got questions.
And interestingly, most people, when you start talking about it, most people come at you with negative comments. But when they see that you're not into the negativity and you start saying, but do you know you can do this and you can eat that, and have you tried this, and I feel so good because, then people just start to go, oh, okay. Oh, well, I like the sound of that. It changes everything.
Yeah.
So it's, your attitude, I guess.
Yeah. I think it's always saying what you gain. And what you gain is infinitely 10 times or infinitely more than even, what you potentially have to change or give up.
Yeah.
So Carol, if we were to you mentioned about you found it difficult at the beginning.
Yes.
Do you want to sort of maybe help somebody understand what you really mean by that?
Well, when you're saying beginning, and I'm thinking beginning of the day.
Okay.
So the beginning of the day, I would normally eat breakfast cereal, which I don't touch anymore.
Right.
But my day now starts out with vegetable and chicken.
Okay.
How do you make breakfast out of vegetables, broccoli, beans?
Okay. Well, how do you? I mean, what did you do?
Well, for a start, I found the vegetables on the list of things that I'm allowed to have, because everyone's list is different. Of the things that I'm allowed to have, I found 2 or 3 things that I am comfortable with, that I enjoy eating, which for me were pumpkin, mushrooms, avocados. I included onions, which maybe I shouldn't have, but anyway.
Yeah.
And what I did was I diced them up very finely, fried them in the frying pan with lots of salt and pepper and spices and herbs. And then when you combine that with some chicken in the pan, and then you have that with your fruit, before you know it, what looks like nothing becomes quite a decent plate full of really delicious food.
Yes.
But it took me a long time to be able to get my head around that was what you'd eat for breakfast.
So what we're really saying is, when you say the difficulty, is more changing your preconceived ideas of what we all think is what should be eaten. Like breakfast is a cereal or toast kind of affair, but actually it's just good food at the start of the day. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I felt that the list was quite restrictive. The foods that I can have, I didn't think there was much there that I could make a meal from. But the more I applied my brain to it,
Yeah.
the more things I came up with. And I started learning to cook with lentils.
Yes.
Make some delicious curries with lentils, and it's all quite within the limits. Things that I wouldn't have done in the past, that just have become staples that I really enjoy.
So it's that interesting. That's really interesting because that's a common thing that I do come across is that we can have a very sort of quite narrow view when we start out because that's just what we're used to doing. But the more you realize this is worth it and you just look for inspiration outside, you realize what you start off thinking is restrictive food list. It's not restrictive at all.
It's just, not really, no.
It just takes that little bit of focus and thought, and then suddenly you've got lots more options.
Definitely.
Yeah. So again, that's something that it's given you is all of these new skills of looking
I think
at.
Another thing that was challenging to begin with, I felt as though I was spending my whole life in the kitchen.
Okay.
I felt as though all I did all day long was either cook meals or plan meals and weigh things.
Okay.
But then once you know exactly how much you're meant to eat, you don't need to weigh it anymore.
No, exactly.
But I did an interesting experiment one day, and I prepared my vegetables for breakfast and cooked them in the frying pan and then compared that with how long it would take me to make a sandwich. And it was exactly the same. So I thought I was spending so much time in the kitchen, but in reality, you're really not.
One of my little thoughts that's popped into my head when you say that is that we do a lot of things in our day-to-day life subconsciously because we've always done them.
Yes.
So when we're not doing anything that's particularly focused, say, on a plan, we don't even think about it. So like you just said, you were spending the same amount of time in the kitchen before what you realised.
Yeah.
But when we were focusing on B, you really are properly focusing.
You're really focused. Yeah.
So therefore you kind of almost think you're spending more time, but actually you're not at all.
I think that's true. I really do. I don't feel that way anymore. I don't feel as though I'm spending my whole life in the kitchen. Yeah.
It's almost interesting that it's like you've completely learned a new skill as well.
Yes, learned a new skill, and also sharing what I've learned. So that was another one of the challenges. Was it's all well and good for me to cook this very unusual diet for myself, but what about my husband who can't cook a thing? What am I going to do with him? But he's eating along with me. He loves my soups. I cook a lot of stir fries now. I don't have the rice and he does.
So it's that adaptation. That's the important thing to really point out.
And maybe he's a little healthier too.
Absolutely, yeah. So whilst we always say the plan is for you and it's only for you, it really can be fitted into family life.
Yeah.
When you just acknowledge you cook a bit more of the different things, you add in different things for the other people in your family, that you really can make it work.
And if other people need something that's not on the plan, they can go and get it themselves.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you, Carol. And
You're welcome.
And is there any final little point that you would share with somebody to say what Metabolic Balance has done or has helped you, or that you would share with them?
I would just say to anyone, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
You will not regret it.
That's wonderful. Thank you.